Hey everybody, welcome to the Context-Exec. In an industry that builds skyscrapers, massive bridges, and powers the planet basically, paves the roads and all the highways, why are we still using spreadsheets? That's a question I want to know. I'll bet the guys in the field actually use higher technology to go grocery shopping. I'm Robert Zimmerman, and welcome to the Context-Exec Podcast. We're going to talk about bad habits coming up next. All right, well, welcome to the Context-Exec Podcast. Today we're talking about 3 bad habits in construction. The top 3 that I think are quietly eating away at our budgets. They're slowing our timelines. They're giving you more headaches than help. And we're going to look at a few real-world examples, maybe some surprising statistics, and most importantly, the practical ways that you can break these habits so that your tech finally pulls its weight. Right? So let's grab a coffee, get your phone on silent. We're going to dig into this real quick. So first of all, why does this matter? Well, in the age of AI, everything is moving at the speed of technology, and construction has kind of always been behind the ball, right? So the construction industry, it's huge. And you may not know this, but it makes up about 13% of global GDP. And yet when it comes to construction technology adoption, we trail way behind. McKinsey, of course, statistics here. And if you remember last week's and lies, damn lies, and statistics, but we still have to have them. So I like to use them every once in a while. But statistics say here that large construction projects on average run about 20% behind schedule and 80% over budget. Now, let's go back to that. 80% over budget. Now, that is just shocking to me. But we've seen the examples of it. You know, a project starts out at, $100 billion, ends up at $500 billion. I think there was an airport or some project over in London. They were doing this capital project, and it just balloons to this massive thing. Now, obviously, they're using technology out there, but really, how can you do that? I mean, how can you be that bad? But maybe some things that might raise some eyebrows are the fact that construction companies spend less than 1% of their revenue on IT. Now, that may not be your company, but on the average, when they take a broad look at it, the numbers say it's 1% of the revenue. Now, that's unlike things like manufacturing or banking, which spend 3 to 4 times more. And, so many different times, people look at manufacturing and go, why is manufacturing able to do better productivity and do all these things better? Well, it's a different animal, but yet we still keep trying to, pull these ideas over. Well, they're spending a little bit more money on their IT department. They're spending more money on their technology. So is it the underinvestment that's causing problems? And the way that we have to use the tools, do we have a big reason for these delays and overruns? Is it because of technology, or is it because of bad habits? So is technology the problem, or have the bad habits been getting in the way? And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit, just basic bad habits. And bad habit number 1 is the shiny object syndrome. Now, this happens a lot as new technologies come out, and it's going to happen more and more. Plenty of companies out there, software companies, promising the next biggest, baddest thing, right? ChatGPT 5 just came out, and, it's supposed to do all of these things. And I'm going to be talking with Adam Krob, I think it's next week after next, and we're going to talk about this because he's all into that, and he's a AI guru. So we're going to get excited about that. But when I start talking about the shiny object syndrome, AI is the shiny object right now. People are thinking, oh, well, maybe we need some technology with AI so we can, turn this all around. Well, when we rush to adopt these things, we get into that one basic question: does this actually solve our problem? Right? We need to ask that question first. Obviously, AI can solve a lot of things, but there's a lot of things, as we talked about last week, that you got to fix before you can even use AI. Your data has got to be clean. It's got to be verified. It's got to be ready to go in the proper formatting. There's a ton of work to do before AI ever gets into your picture. So, can this new software that you're looking at, will it actually solve your problem? Like, here's a scenario. You're at a trade show. You see a vendor demo of an amazing piece of tech, and maybe it's a drone with AI image recognition or a mixed reality headset for site visualization. It's impressive, right? And it is impressive. There's a lot of cool tools out there. And you get excited. So then you decide to move down the road to start making this purchase. And then all of a sudden you get into the weeds of what it really takes to make this thing work for you, right? It sits there for a long time. Maybe the implementation or the rollout takes 9 months, a year and a half, 2 years, right? Then maybe it's not integrated into your data or your workflow, all right? It's not connected. Maybe it's not connected to the right people, or your team kind of dropped the ball. Oh, we didn't get these people involved. So then what happens? It's floundering, it's failing. And then it's a blame game. Oh, this product it's total crap. It didn't do what we wanted it to do. Well, did you do your due diligence on it first? All right. And so that's where sometimes you're going to need a little help. Now, on average, again, the construction firm uses around 6.2 different technologies, and that's up from 5.3 last year. And that sounds like, obviously, people are adopting more technologies. I've heard of some companies using up 150, 200 different softwares. I don't know if that number was, expanded, but we were at the AI transformation conference, I think last year, and somebody, one of the companies said that, yeah, there are 200 different softwares in their systems. Obviously, a lot of data siloing going on there. So, but again, what happens is you get all these things, and these systems don't talk with each other, which means you just created more places for data to hide. And, mid-sized contractors invested highly in AI-powered site cameras at one point. It's great tech, but then it wasn't integrated with the project management platform, and as a result, the data sat in a separate dashboard. Then no one had time to check. The fix for all this habit could have been simple, but it's probably not easy. So before you commit to anything, right, these flashy new projects, you need to do analysis. You may need to hire an expert, somebody that can help you get you through, get you on your way, get you going down the right path. You're going to find out what your biggest bottleneck is, and you're going to find out most likely it's probably in the communicating between the office and the field, and who's tracking materials. Are there going to be reporting delays? So start there. You got to start doing an analysis of what this piece of tech is going to do for you, who's going to be affected by it, who's going to be in charge of it to kind of pilot this tool and get it actually working into your system. So you got to see if it works. You got to measure the impact. And if it's not going to make a real difference, if you get through that pilot and it's like, and I've seen this happen where they got through a pilot and it really did was evidence that this tool was not going to work, and they were able to walk away from it. So again, they were able to walk away from a bad habit or that shiny new object. Somebody kind of sold them on something. Number 2, bad habit number 2, set it and forget it. This is an old school one, right? This is where you think you're going to turn something on and you're never going to have to mess with it ever again. Well, your technology's not like that. So set it and forget it mindset. You know the drill, right? A new platform gets rolled out, and maybe it's BIM, maybe it's a safety reporting app, maybe it's a cloud-based scheduling tool, and in the first month, everybody's on board. And then by month 4, half the team stopped using it. The data is floundering, out of date. A company called Avocado found that 35% of owners say that their data gets trapped in siloed systems, and 70% of construction firms report that implementing new tech is so hard that they don't even really want to do it. anymore. It was probably the reason why they're still using spreadsheets, right? So when the enthusiasm wears off, there's a lot of companies that it's like quiet quitting. They just stop trying. I once saw a GC implement a great field reporting tool, and it worked beautifully for a few weeks. And then little by little, the crews went back to either texting updates or jotting notes on a piece of paper. And then by the time the reports were reviewed, right, there were key details missing. So some of them were even using the app and still writing stuff down on pieces of paper because they were afraid that the app wasn't going to collect the data. Because they said, "Oh, I've lost it before, so I just write it down now." They're making decisions, and so it's wasted time, right? They're wasting time if the app isn't truly working. And again, so this is that set it and forget mentality. Means you can't just turn it on and think that, guess what? I'm never gonna have to check this again. It's done. It's already here. We're good. Don't worry about it. You can't. You've got to continue to work with it. So you got to break this habit of thinking to set it and forget it. One thing, and I've always said this, is that you've got to do continuous training. And I know, you can hear the grumbling out there already, oh, training. Everybody hates it, right? But it's necessary. And here's why. Because a better trained staff, a better trained crew, does better work, and they don't get tripped up on the little stuff, okay? And that 15-minute training session or that 30-minute training session that you can take to train them on a new product or a new feature in the product is worth it. It's worth it for the hours that you will end up spending and thousands of dollars that you will end up spending trying to get them into a new product or trying to get them off a product or break some terrible habit or some procedural problem, where it bogs down the process, right? So tech adoption is not install and walk away. It's an ongoing process, and that means you're going to need refresher training every few months. You're going to need to open up the feedback channels, right? You're going to have to listen so that teams can suggest improvements. And guess what? Software tech companies are open to improving their software. They really are. But they got to have that feedback loop. If you just set it and forget it and say, "Oh, it's working today, I'm okay, I'm not really worried about it." No, you can't do that. You got to put it on the calendar, right? You got to get it, and you got to be measuring this thing so you get clear metrics, measure the usage, and here's just a little bit of a leadership tip. If you want your team to use the tool, you have to use it too at some level. So adoption starts at the top. The executive sponsorship is uber important here, right? So adoption starts at the top. Now, you may not be using it if you're doing a time tracking, you're not using it to track your time. If you're doing a project management, you're not using it to, manage a project, but maybe you're looking at the dashboards. You're seeing who's inputting information. You're utilizing the data that people are putting in order to make your critical decisions. Because if you're not, there's really no reason to have that data in the first place. Okay, bad habit number 3, the paper and pen comfort zone. Yeah, that's right. Paper and pen is great. I love it. I like to journal. I like to write on a piece of paper. I pencil out stuff all the time. But for big projects, big construction projects, not the little stuff that I'm working out on my shop, but you need to start, working with a digital process. Now, so bad habit number 3, sticking with a paper and pen because it's comfortable. It's not. So, and yes, paper doesn't crash, but it will burn. And it doesn't run out of a battery, but it will get lost, and it will be past its usefulness. So it's just a big black hole for every project. All the data that you will ever get, it'll just get sucked into that if you're sticking with that paper and pen process. And I can even say the same thing for spreadsheets at this point. It's a big black hole of information that you're never going to get out because you're never going to be able to validate it. Now, according to G2, up to 30% of initial project data is lost by the end of a job. And insufficient data is responsible for 14% of all rework worldwide. All right. And if we go back to that 14% of that GDP number, which I think is in the multi-billions of dollars, right? That's billions of dollars wasted every year. And that's not just about the data that you lose. It's about the speed that you sacrifice. So modular construction methods paired with digital workflows can be 20 to 50% faster, cut accidents by over 80%. Now, that's huge, right? Cutting accidents by over 80%. If any of you have ever been involved on a work site accident, been around it, you know the devastation that can cause to not only the team, but also the schedule, most importantly, just the team and wondering where was the failure here, right? It stops everything in its tracks. So there's a story about this. As a site superintendent, it writes a change order on like a sticky note, right? And this is not a safety thing, but he writes a change order on a sticky note and he leaves it on a project manager's desk. And the PM doesn't see it for a couple of days. And then by the time it's into the system, the wrong materials have been ordered, right? And now you've got delays. You've got extra cost. You've got frustrated crews. You got people got to go back to the job site. You got people that have left that didn't know anything about it, right? So what's the fix? Okay. So don't try to digitize your entire operation overnight, right? Don't go buy the big shiny object. Start with one process that you can digitize that causes, maybe those pain. Maybe it's daily field reports that you need to get in a digital platform. Maybe that's that communication you need to get back for. Maybe it's just, time tracking and productivity. You need those productivity numbers so you can make leading edge decisions instead of lagging decisions. So get that process into a mobile friendly system and then make sure everyone can use it. Again, back to that training thing. Make sure everybody can use it. People will learn. They may grumble about it. They may, fuss a little bit here and there. Most of the time, and I'll say 95% of the people are more than willing, if it's going to end up at some point making it a little bit easier or making the process a little more streamlined, they're going to jump on board, right? So let's recap what we've been talking about here. And this is probably stuff that you already know, right? And you don't necessarily need to be reminded of it, right? You know it's out there. Some of you are just sitting there shaking your heads. But let's recap the 3 bad habits that are slowing down construction technology, right? Obviously, there's the one, the chasing the shiny new tools. That we talk about that tech fatigue. Somebody's, we went and bought this new software and we're going to try this out and try that out. And everybody's just like, oh, my head. I cannot take another, thing. We don't need to be chasing shiny new tools. Maybe we just need to look at our tech stack that we currently have and what is it that we're not utilizing. Maybe you already have the tool that you need and you haven't seen it. All right. You might be neglecting the tools that you already have. Number 2 was, what was it? What was number 2? Neglecting the tools that you already have. Lack of training, right? Not following through. Set it and forget it mentality, right? That's what it was. Set it and forget it. So yeah, you can't just set it and forget it, right? You're going to have to work with your software. You're going to have to continue to work with your software. And even, some of your products, they're going to have improvements. You're going to have to train. You're going to have to keep everybody in that continued education mode. And lastly, of course, clinging to paper when the digital could do the job faster and better. Obviously, if you're a pencil and paper type person and you've just been doing it for a long time and it's so easy, I get it. But it's a new tool. You're not going to be perfect at it when you first start. You just got to start working with it. And because you're not just only trying to make you better, you're trying to help communicate with everybody else. All right. So breaking these bad habits isn't just about being more techie, right? It's about making these better business decisions, reducing the rework, delivering projects on time. And so here's one last stat for you. All right. 99% of mega projects face delays. All right. So your tech habits just might be a bigger part of the problem than you think. And so here's your kind of action step for the week. Do a list. Take a list do a little tech habits audit. Like, how do you use your system? So list your tools that you and your team use, and then mark which ones are kind of fully adopted and which ones are underused. All right. Mark out which ones. Check out your list of, are you still using paper processes? Do they still exist? And so if you have those, maybe you want to pick one of those and start there. If there's a paper process somewhere, or maybe an old spreadsheet that everybody's just, we're using it, but man, got a lot of complaints. Start there. And so anyway, if you need any help with it, let me know. If you've got some stories to tell me, I'd love to hear your stories. How maybe you had a tech win that completely changed how you work. Maybe you've got some ideas on how this new tech might be affecting the industry in a positive way or even in a negative way. Like I said last week, AI tools, as much as they'd be great for crunching those numbers, you may not necessarily like what you have to hear after they crunch them for you. So, but anyway, if you've got any ideas or you feel like being a guest on the podcast, well, send me a note, leave me a link. I can share with you on the future episodes. Next, we're going to be talking about, I'm going to work with Adam Krob, and we're going to be talking about AI and those things. And then after that, I've got another episode coming up with Christian Berger. We're going to talk a little bit more about AI and some other things that I think you're going to find interesting. But until then, I hope, I'll have a great week, and check out the other Context-Exec podcasts. And like I said, if you know of anybody that would like to have something to say about construction technology, I'm just here to talk about it all. And so anyway, have a great week. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you next week on the Context-Exec Podcast.